Hello fellow YouTubers. I have a leak on the outside of my house, water coming out of a spout that comes through the wall. Now I know that that pipe that the water is coming out of is an overflow, and that overflow is for this tank here, which is in my loft space, in the roof of my house. Now what will have happened is the ball valve that keeps the water level to its maximum, that will have a defect, so it's broken. There's something wrong with it. What it consists of, I've got a new one here, because I know that this is the problem, it will be, because I've experienced this before. So here is a float valve. This is the float, which normally would be twisted around. Let's set this one up ready to go. I'll show you what it looks like inside the tank as well, and I'll show you what I'm going to do to replace it. But basically, you have various components. This is just a ball, a float. It's full of air, and so when it sits on the water, it floats. There we go. It screws on, and it just sits on the top of the water. It screws onto here. Screw that on there, and when it's set up like this, obviously you can set the height of it to change the level of the water that it works from. This end goes through the wall of the tank. This part here is a water spout that can move around to where you want the water to dump, but generally you leave it tight to that position. And this here is there's a sort of button in the middle of this front piece. Behind this you can actually open it and take it off, but I'm not going to because there's no point. There's a rubber dome, and this button pushes against the rubber dome, which stops the flow of the water coming through the valve and out through the spout. Obviously this float lifting up on the water makes that happen. Now when they break, the float lifts up, but some water still dribbles out through the valve. The valve leaks. And that then causes the tank to overfill, and the tank should have a overflow pipe installed that's slightly higher than the water level, and the water flows out through the overflow pipe, and that's what we see pouring out of the wall outside. So I'm going to replace my broken valve with this new valve here. I'm going to tighten this up a bit as well. There we go, just so that's nicely tight on there. There we go, that's nice. And there we go, so that's ready to happen. I'm going to turn you around and you can look at what's going on. So what we have, this is a fairly modern tank. It has it's a poly tank. This is a hatch in the poly tank. There we go. And what you can see is the float valve inside. If I show you it there, that you can probably see the ball on the end there. It's not very bright. And then on this side, we can duck down in there, you can see the valve. There it is. There's the valve in against the wall there. And if we look at the back over here. Try not to fall in, I'm not sure if you can swim. There we go. This part here is insulation over the incoming pipe. If I cut this off, everything in a loft should be insulated to protect it against freezing in the winter. Unless you live somewhere where the temperature doesn't go below freezing, you really ought to make sure all your plumbing in the loft is insulated. So this stuff is just pipe insulation, which I'm going to put back afterwards. So if I look at this now, you can see that there's this is an isolation valve which I've turned off, which is why it's in the cross position rather than flowing along the line. And then we have this connector which is onto the back of the valve, and this white nut is actually holding it clamped against the side of the tank. There's a hole through the tank, and that's where goes. So I'm going to, I've obviously turned this off already. I'm going to turn it on, show you what happens when you do. Now I let some water out of the tank just to reduce the level, but if I turn that on now, you'll see that water starts to come into the tank. Now if I lift up this, the water stops. But what was happening was it's still dripping. I'm holding it quite tight, but if I release some of the pressure, we get some drips start. And that was what was happening, and then it was dripping outside because it got to the point where it was full. We release it again, the water flows fairly slowly. Now if I turn this isolation valve off, I know that the water is isolated from the valve. Well, the valve is isolated from the water supply, and I can then undo the pipes and take it off, which I will now do. Just a point about valves, there are low pressure valves and high pressure valves. This is a mains water system, so I've decided it's a high pressure system, so I bought a high pressure valve. If your water isn't very high pressure, you might choose a low pressure valve, otherwise your tank takes forever to fill. And if you put a low pressure on a high pressure supply, you might end up with a great gushing filling process. So I've got my spanner onto the and see when I do that, that's moving everything around. That's so I need to move that way. I'm going to put another spanner on the other side of the isolation valve to take the load. I don't want anything to disrupt the isolation valve. Now, I can see my valve is now moving, which is unhelpful. Oh, there we go. So I've just held the valve inside the tank whilst I push down on my spanner, and that is now loose. And that's a bit of a result. Sorry, I know you're at the extreme of your view there. There we go. So I can take that off. Now you can see that that's... Oh no! Where have you gone? Come back. Come back, all is forgiven. Oh, are you okay? Oh, that was a bit of a shock, wasn't it? We were all upside down and everything. Oh, whew, that was a close one. Nearly fell out the loft. Right, where were we? Oh yeah, there we go. So this is now loose, but the valve is still tight in its thing, so I'm going to undo this white clamping nut. I'll hold the valve in my hand. There we go. Now, what I've found here is that there's also this piece is also on here, and that's to give some strength to the wall of the tank, stop the valve twisting the wall of the tank. So I'm going to take this off here. There it is. Let's see if I can wiggle this through. It's quite tight in the hole. Oh, there we go. That's the plate. That goes vertically just to stop the levering of the valve on the tank wall. And if you look around here, here's my valve that's coming out, and there's the ball. So, just stand you up a bit. There we go. So, there's the valve that's come out. Looks a bit scaled up. Doesn't look pretty bad, actually. There we go. And that obviously is like the one we're going to put in. I chose well. Exactly the same. Go back in. I'm going to take this nut off. Now if I set the amount the same, well, it looks like this one was actually set to the furthest extreme, so I'm going to do the same. I'll leave this back nut tight up against there. I can stuff this through the hole. Put my nut back on. See if you can come over here and have a look. Watch what we're doing. Can you see down here? No, not yet. Hang on. There you go. That's better. So here's the nut. That goes back on. Got to make sure we get it upright in the tank. Inside this silver thing here, there's actually an olive on the pipe. You can't actually see it because the silver thing is in the way and I can't get it out without taking it off the valve, but there's a 15mm olive, it's either a copper or brass ring, that seals this chrome nut onto the pipe. But yeah, if you want to know more about compression fittings and olives, do look it up on the internet, because I can't really show you that here. Ooh. You okay? Sorry, being called for. Okay, 5 minutes. 5 minutes because I've forgotten to put on the plate. The plate. You could have reminded me. So the plate goes on. There we go. And then tighten up the nut. Through plate nice and straight. Big spanner. We have to put this one back on here. Difficulty with this one is tightening it up enough whilst being able to hold the valve, which isn't easy. I shall grip it inside. That's pretty good. Yeah, we're pretty good. So, if I turn the water on now, I'm fairly comfortable that this valve is upright and it's in the tank. I turn this on. What we find is there is no water leaking out, which is exactly as it should be. And when we look inside the tank, you can now see there's the new valve, this is the new bar. If I push this bar down, hey presto, water. So you can see that it's going to have to go down to, you know, a little bit lower than it is. Now that was trying to fill before, so these valves are obviously very different in the height at which they allow water in, and that's because the old one had worn out. It was at its limit. But yeah, there we go. We've reconnected it. It's not leaking. I'm going to put the insulation back on because I'm confident with that, and yeah, it's a good job chopped. That really important thing is just to make sure there's definitely no leaks. If it leaks up here, there's no one to see it. But there we go. Let's put this back around there. This back around here. Those on there. Tank lid. Insulation. There you have it. That is how you replace a ball float valve in a cold water storage cistern in the loft, or loft roof, attic if you like, in the loft of your house. Thank you for watching. Hit subscribe if you like it, and if you've got any questions, stick them in the comments and I'll answer them. Thank you very much. Take care.